My boyfriend's phone was set to delete messages if I ever checked it. The notification sound made my stomach drop before I even looked at the screen. Message deleted by security protocol. I stared at Jake's phone in my hands, watching as conversation after conversation vanished in real time. WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat, every messaging app was systematically wiping itself clean the moment my fingerprint unlocked his iPhone 14. It was like watching evidence dissolve in acid. Babe, what are you doing with my phone? Jake's voice came from the kitchen doorway, and I could hear that forced casual tone he'd been using lately whenever I got too close to his precious device. Your mom called, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. I answered because you were in the shower. She wants you to call her back about Sunday dinner. A lie. His mom hadn't called. I'd been scrolling through our Netflix queue when his phone lit up with what looked like the beginning of a very explicit message from someone named Workout Buddy Flexed Biceps, and now I was watching 2 years of gaslighting reveal itself in the most technologically sophisticated way possible. Jake patted over, still damp from the shower with his Stanford computer science degree practically radiating smugness from every water droplet. Oh weird, my phone's been glitchy lately. Probably need to update some apps. He plucked the device from my hands with a kind of casual precision that told me this wasn't the first time his security protocol had activated. Security protocol? I repeated the words that had flashed across his screen. Yeah, it's this new feature. Protects against malware and spam. He was already thumbing through his phone, and I watched his shoulders relax as he confirmed whatever he needed to confirm. Super boring tech stuff. Super boring tech stuff. Right. Because I'm just Sarah from marketing who couldn't possibly understand that he programmed his phone to treat me like a threat. We'd been living together in our mission district apartment for 8 months. Dating for 2 years. I'd watched him build apps and debug code at our kitchen table. I brought him coffee during his late-night programming sessions and listened to him explain APIs and algorithms with the patience of someone who thought they'd found their person. And the entire time, he'd been treating me like malware. I'm going to grab some groceries for dinner, I said, already reaching for my purse. Need anything? Maybe some of that good bread from Tartine? And wine. Definitely wine. He was sprawling across our gray IKEA couch, phone already consuming his attention again. Love you, babe. Love you too. Another lie, but this one was mine. I made it exactly 3 blocks before I had to duck into the Starbucks on 18th Street and lock myself in the bathroom. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my own phone and opened the Notes app where I'd been documenting things for months, the times he'd called me paranoid, the nights he'd stayed late at work, the way he'd made me feel insane for noticing that something was wrong. Asterisk October 15th, 3:47 p.m. Phone automatically deletes messages when I touch it. He programmed it. He programmed it, asterisk. I stared at those words until they blurred. 2 years of my life. 2 years of thinking I was losing my mind while he'd been running a digital black ops mission against my sanity. But here's the thing about dating a programmer, you learn a few things about passwords and cloud storage. And Jake had always been terrible at logging out. The Starbucks bathroom smelled like industrial disinfectant and desperation, but I stayed locked in there for 23 minutes, scrolling through every shared account I could remember. Jake's iCloud was still logged in on my iPad from when he'd helped me set up my Apple TV last month. His Google Drive was accessible through the Chrome browser on my laptop where he checked his work email just once 6 weeks ago. He was meticulous about his phone security, but sloppy about everything else. I started with his photo stream and immediately wished I hadn't. The timestamps told a story that made my stomach churn. September 3rd, 2:15 a.m. Screenshots of Tinder conversations while I was asleep next to him. September 18th, 11:47 p.m. Explicit photos that definitely weren't of me, taken in what looked like the Marriott downtown. October 2nd, 4:33 p.m. A selfie with a brunette at Dolores Park on the day he told me he was debugging code at the office all afternoon. But the worst part wasn't the cheating. It was the folder labeled Sarah Paranoid Episodes. He'd been documenting me. Screenshots of my texts asking where he was. Voice memos of our arguments where he'd goaded me into sounding crazy and then preserved my emotional breakdowns like some kind of twisted insurance policy. There were even photos, pictures he'd taken of me crying after our fights, looking disheveled and unhinged. The most recent entry was from last Tuesday, a clinical-sounding note that read as getting suspicious again. Activated security protocol on phone. Consider gaslighting technique number 3, make her think she's remembering wrong, if she asks about deleted messages. Gaslighting technique number 3. He had a numbered list. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. Just a minute, I called out, my voice cracking. I kept scrolling. His Google Drive was a masterclass in deception, spreadsheets tracking which lies he told to which people, a document titled Sarah's Schedule with my work meetings and gym classes mapped out so he'd know when he could safely bring other women to our apartment, and a folder of backup screenshots from dating apps, organized by woman's name. There were 12 different women. 12. But it was the group chat that made me actually nauseous. Brothers who code, Jake, his roommate from Stanford Marcus, and his coworker Devin. 3 months of messages detailing their various schemes to cheat on their respective girlfriends. Jake wasn't just cheating, he was crowdsourcing strategies and sharing techniques like they were debugging a particularly challenging piece of software. Asterisk Jake, security protocol worked perfectly. Phone wiped everything before Sarah could see anything incriminating, asterisk. Asterisk Marcus, dude you're like the Neo of cheating. That's genius, asterisk. Asterisk Devin, can you code something like that for my phone? Ashley's getting suspicious too, asterisk. Asterisk Jake, sure man. The trick is making them think they're paranoid. Document everything so if it blows up you have evidence she's unstable, asterisk. The timestamp was from 43 minutes ago. While I was in this bathroom having a breakdown, he was in our apartment bragging about psychologically torturing me to his friends. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake, asterisk taking longer than usual for groceries. Everything okay, asterisk. Even now, he was tracking me. Timing me. Probably adding this to his little paranoid episodes folder. I screenshotted everything. Every photo, every document, every cruel message in that group chat. 2 years of systematic manipulation, saved to my phone in 12 minutes of frantic downloading. When I finally emerged from that bathroom, I had 847 screenshots and a plan that was going to destroy him as methodically as he destroyed my sanity. The company party was in 6 days. His entire world would be there. Time to introduce them to the real Jake. I spent the next 3 days living a double life that would have impressed even Jake's twisted sense of theater. During the day, I played the loving girlfriend. I made his coffee exactly how he liked it, oat milk, 1 sugar, a dash of cinnamon. I listened to him complain about his coworker Derek's inefficient coding practices. I even suggested we watch The Social Network for movie night, just to see if he'd catch the irony. He didn't. But every moment he wasn't looking, I was building my case. Tuesday evening, while Jake was at his weekly team-building dinner that I now knew was actually drinks with Marcus and Devin at their usual hookup coordination meeting, I discovered something that made my hands shake so hard I nearly dropped my laptop. His browser history wasn't just careless, it was catastrophic. The dating profiles were bad enough. Jake_SF_26 on Tinder, Jake Mission on Bumble, even a premium account on some app called Seeking that I'd never heard of. But buried in his Chrome history from 3 weeks ago was a search that made my blood run cold: how to make girlfriend think she's losing memory. The rabbit hole went deeper. Psychological manipulation techniques. How to document someone's mental instability. Legal protection if girlfriend has breakdown. He wasn't just cheating. He was systematically trying to make me question my own sanity, and he'd been researching how to do it more effectively. But the worst discovery came Wednesday morning, hidden in a buried subfolder of his Google Drive labeled insurance. Videos. Dozens of them. Jake had been secretly recording our most intimate moments for over a year. Not just sex, though there were plenty of those, but videos of me crying during our arguments, clips of me looking confused and hurt when he'd gaslight me about his whereabouts, even a recording of me on the phone with my therapist discussing how I'd been feeling paranoid and unstable lately. The file names made me nauseous: Sarah_breakdown_September 15.mov, Sarah_crazy_accusations_October 3.mp4, Sarah_admitting_paranoia_therapy_October 12.m4a. He'd been building a portfolio of my psychological destruction. I sat in our kitchen, staring at my laptop screen while Jake hummed in the shower, and realized that this went beyond cheating. This was psychological warfare, and I'd been losing a battle I didn't even know I was fighting. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Emma, *K, are you okay? You seemed off at lunch yesterday. Want to talk tonight? Sweet Emma. Always looking out for me. I was about to respond when something made me scroll back up in our text thread to double-check the timestamp of her message. My heart stopped. Yesterday's lunch was at 1:30 p.m. But there, in Emma's messages from 2:15 p.m., was a text I definitely hadn't seen before. Jake's right, you have been acting really paranoid lately. Maybe you should consider therapy? Except I never told Emma that Jake said I was paranoid. And I was already in therapy, something Jake knew but Emma didn't. With trembling fingers, I scrolled through more of our conversation history. There they were, messages I'd somehow missed or forgotten, perfectly timed responses from Emma that seemed designed to make me doubt myself. You're probably just imagining things. Jake seems like such a loyal guy. Are you sure you're remembering that correctly? I called her immediately. Emma, we need to talk. Now. Sarah? What's wrong? You sound upset. Did you ever text me about Jake saying I was paranoid? Silence. Too long of a silence. Emma? Sarah, I think maybe we should talk in person. The shower was still running. I grabbed my keys and purse, my laptop bag, everything I couldn't risk leaving behind. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I whispered. And Emma? Don't text anyone that I called. As I slipped out of our apartment for what I now knew would be the last time, I realized Jake's web of manipulation was even larger than I'd imagined. Emma's apartment in the Castro was exactly 17 minutes from mine, but I made it in 12 by running 3 red lights and parking illegally in a bus zone. My hands were still shaking when she opened the door. Sarah, you look terrible. What's? Show me your phone, I said, pushing past her into the living room. Right now. Show me our text conversation from yesterday. Emma's face went pale. She was still holding her phone from when I'd called, and I watched her thumb hover over the screen like she was calculating something. Sarah, maybe you should sit down first. How long? My voice came out sharper than I intended. How long has he been using you to mess with my head? The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Emma sank onto her gray sectional, the one I'd helped her pick out from West Elm last Christmas when I still thought my biggest problem was her terrible taste in throw pillows. 6 months, she whispered. But Sarah, it's not what you think. He was worried about you. He said you'd been having paranoid episodes and... Paranoid episodes. I laughed, and it sounded manic even to me. Let me guess. He told you I'd been accusing him of cheating for no reason? Said I was getting unstable and he needed help keeping track of my episodes so he could help me get better? Emma's expression told me everything. He showed me screenshots of your texts. You were accusing him of horrible things, and he just wanted. He wanted you to gaslight me too. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the screenshots I'd taken. Emma, look at this. Really look. I showed her the brothers who code group chat first. Watched her face change as she read Jake's messages about technique number 3 and making her think she's remembering wrong. Then the folder labeled Sarah Paranoid Episodes with its clinical documentation of my emotional breakdowns. Oh my god, Emma breathed. Sarah, I had no idea. He said he was trying to protect you from yourself. What exactly did he ask you to do? Emma's hands were shaking now too. He'd text me after you two had fights. Asked me to check in on you, but to phrase things in specific ways. He said it would help you realize when you were being irrational. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. He sent me scripts, Sarah. Actual scripts of what to say to you. Scripts. Of course he did. Do you still have them? She nodded and pulled up her messages with Jake. The thread was extensive, months of coordination between my boyfriend and my sister to systematically undermine my grasp on reality. Jake would send Emma summaries of our arguments, then coach her on how to respond to me in ways that would make me doubt myself. Jake, Sarah's going to call you upset about me being late tonight. She's convinced I was with another woman. Can you ask her if she's been taking her vitamins? The B12 deficiency thing we discussed. Make it seem like you're worried about her memory, asterisk. Emma, are you sure this is helping her? Asterisk Jake, trust me. My mom's a therapist, remember? Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. Sarah needs to learn to trust her partner instead of her paranoid thoughts, asterisk. I screenshotted everything while Emma sat there crying. He told me your mom was a therapist, I said. She's not, Emma whispered. She works at Nordstrom. Another lie. Help me give Jake a masterclass in coding. Because I'm about to debug his entire life. The plan required precision timing, and Emma turned out to be surprisingly good at psychological warfare once she switched sides. Thursday morning, while Jake was at his standing 9 a.m. meeting with the development team, Emma and I broke back into our apartment. I still had my key, obviously, but it felt like a heist anyway. We had exactly 2 hours before Jake's lunch break, when he'd inevitably check his security cameras through his phone app. This feels insane, Emma whispered, even though we were in my own living room. Good, I said, plugging a USB drive into Jake's gaming computer. Insane is what he's been making me feel for 2 years. Time to return the favor. Jake's desktop setup was his pride and joy, 3 monitors, RGB lighting, a mechanical keyboard that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. He built it for optimal productivity, but based on his browser history, he mostly used it for managing his rotating cast of side pieces and researching new manipulation techniques. The USB drive contained a simple program that Marcus had actually helped me create, back when we were all friends and he was showing off his coding skills at a party 6 months ago. Ironic, considering Marcus was part of Jake's Brothers Who Code conspiracy. The program would create hidden backups of everything, every file, every photo, every browser history entry, and upload them to a cloud account Jake would never think to check. How do you know he won't notice? Emma asked, watching me work. Because Jake thinks he's the smartest person in every room, I said, navigating to his hidden folders. And because I've been watching him for 2 years. He checks his phone obsessively, but he only does a security scan on his computer once a month. Always on the first Saturday. Which was tomorrow. Perfect timing. While the backup program ran, I accessed Jake's social media accounts from his saved passwords. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everything still logged in because he'd never considered that his living girlfriend might someday become his enemy. Jesus Christ, Emma breathed, looking over my shoulder at his Instagram DMs. Is that Jennifer from your work? It was. Jennifer from HR, who'd always been so friendly to me at company events. Who'd asked about Jake with such genuine interest. Who was apparently sending him topless photos from the office bathroom during her lunch breaks. Add her to the list, I said, screenshotting the conversation thread. Jennifer had just become collateral damage in Jake's war against my sanity. The backup finished at 10:47 a.m. I ejected the USB drive and pocketed it, then opened Jake's calendar to confirm what I already knew. His company party was scheduled for Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Marriott Grand Ballroom. The same ballroom where he'd received a calendar notification that I now realized was probably a hookup confirmation, since his real calendar showed a completely different event name. Sarah, Emma said quietly. She was scrolling through Jake's photos on his second monitor. You need to see this. The folder was labeled Leverage and contained screenshots of private conversations with dozens of people in our social circle. Jake hadn't just been manipulating me, he'd been collecting compromising information about everyone we knew. Screenshots of our friend Maya admitting to an affair with her married boss. Photos of his coworker Tom's recreational drug use. Even a recorded phone call of his own brother discussing tax evasion strategies. He's been building blackmail material on everyone, Emma said, her voice hollow. Sarah, what if he tries to use this stuff against you when you expose him? I stared at the files, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Jake wasn't just a cheating boyfriend with tech skills. He was a predator who'd been systematically collecting ammunition against everyone in his life. Then we make sure everyone knows what he has on them before he can use it, I said, copying the entire Leverage folder to my drive. Because Jake made one crucial error in his master manipulation plan. What's that? He assumed I'd be too broken to fight back. I closed his computer and grabbed Emma's hand. Time to prove him wrong. We left the apartment at 11:23 a.m., taking nothing that belonged to Jake but everything that belonged to me, including 2 years' worth of evidence that was about to ruin his life in front of everyone who mattered to him. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. The final piece of the puzzle came Friday night, 18 hours before Jake's professional destruction, when I discovered he'd made one catastrophic mistake. I was doing a final review of all the evidence on my laptop, sitting in Emma's living room with Chinese takeout containers scattered around me like battle plans, when I noticed something in Jake's cloud storage that made my blood freeze. A folder labeled Sarah's Family that I'd somehow missed during my initial reconnaissance. Emma, I said, my voice tight. Come look at this. The folder contained detailed background checks on everyone in my family. Not just basic information, Jake had paid for premium reports that included credit scores, employment history, even my parents' mortgage details and my brother's student loan debt. There were screenshots of my dad's LinkedIn messages with potential business clients, copies of my mom's medical records from when she'd had her cancer scare last year, and a particularly thick subfolder dedicated to Emma's dating life. How did he get mom's medical records? Emma whispered. I clicked on a document titled Access Methods and immediately regretted it. Jake had been systematically phishing our entire family for over a year. Fake emails that looked like they came from banks, insurance companies, even the hospital billing department. He'd collected enough personal information to access accounts, request records, and build detailed psychological profiles on everyone I cared about. But the worst part was a spreadsheet labeled pressure points that mapped out exactly how to manipulate each member of my family if I ever became unmanageable. Asterisk Sarah's mom, Linda, cancer anxiety. Suggest Sarah's stress might cause relapse. Asterisk. Asterisk Sarah's dad, Robert, business reputation concerns. Threaten exposure of client poaching emails. Asterisk. Asterisk Emma, dating insecurity. Emphasize how Sarah's episodes make her undateable by association. Asterisk. Asterisk brother Mike, financial stress. Reference student loans, suggest Sarah might need to borrow money if relationship fails. Asterisk. He turned my own family into weapons against me, and they didn't even know they were loaded. Sarah, this is. Emma trailed off, scrolling through months of calculated psychological warfare against our parents, our brother, even our grandmother's personal information. Illegal, I finished. This is completely illegal. Identity theft, medical records fraud, harassment. Jake just handed me enough evidence to send him to federal prison. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake, asterisk miss you babe. Can't wait for tomorrow night. You're going to love meeting my boss finally, asterisk. The audacity was breathtaking. Even now, 17 hours before I destroyed his entire existence, he was still playing the loving boyfriend card. I screenshot his message and added it to the folder labeled evidence manipulation on my desktop. Then I opened my laptop's email client and began composing the message that would change everything. The recipient list took me 47 minutes to compile. Jake's boss and entire development team. His parents and brother. Every person in the Brothers Who Code group chat. All 12 women from his dating app rotation, whose contact information I'd found in his prospects spreadsheet. My coworkers who'd been unknowingly participating in his gaslighting campaign. Even his Stanford computer science graduating class mailing list, because Jake had always been so proud of his alumni network. 86 people total. 86 people who were about to learn exactly who Jake Hoffman really was. The email was simple, clinical, and devastating. Subject, the real Jake Hoffman, evidence attached. Hi everyone. Asterisk my name is Sarah Chen, and I've been Jake's girlfriend for 2 years. Tomorrow night, many of you will see Jake at his company party. Before you do, I think you deserve to know who you're really dealing with, asterisk. Asterisk attached you'll find documentation of Jake's systematic psychological abuse, manipulation, and illegal surveillance of not just me, but potentially many of you. The evidence includes asterisk. Screenshots of dating profiles and explicit conversations with multiple women. Recordings he made of me without consent during intimate and vulnerable moments. Documented plans to gaslight me into believing I was mentally unstable. Identity theft and illegal access to my family's private records. Blackmail material he's collected on people in our social circle. Group chat messages detailing manipulation techniques he shares with other men. Asterisk Jake programmed his phone to automatically delete messages when I touched it, then spent months making me believe I was paranoid for suspecting his infidelity. He involved my own sister in coordinating psychological manipulation campaigns against me, asterisk. Asterisk if you're mentioned in any of these files, please contact me immediately. If you're one of the women he's been seeing, I'm sorry you're finding out this way, asterisk. Asterisk Jake will likely claim I'm unstable or that this evidence is fabricated. I've uploaded everything to a secure cloud server with timestamps and metadata intact for legal verification, asterisk. See you tomorrow night, Jake. Sarah. My finger hovered over the send button at 11:47 p.m. Friday night. Are you sure about this? Emma asked softly. I thought about 2 years of being made to feel crazy. About Jake's folder of my breakdowns, labeled like specimens in a lab. About my mom's private medical records in his blackmail collection. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said, and clicked send. 86 emails launched into the night like digital missiles, each one carrying enough evidence to obliterate Jake's carefully constructed facade. In 12 hours, Jake would walk into that hotel ballroom expecting to charm his boss and celebrate his promotion. Instead, he'd find a room full of people who finally knew exactly what he was. I woke up Saturday morning to 47 missed calls and 183 text messages. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since 6:23 a.m., and for a terrifying moment I thought maybe Jake had somehow turned this around on me. Maybe his manipulation was so sophisticated that he'd convinced everyone I was the crazy one after all. Then I started reading the messages. Asterisk Marcus, 7:14 a.m. Holy shit, Sarah. I had no idea it was this bad. Jake told us you were just jealous and paranoid. I'm so sorry, asterisk. Asterisk Jennifer from HR, 7:31 a.m. Sarah, I'm mortified. I never would have gotten involved if I'd known he had a living girlfriend. He told me you two broke up months ago, asterisk. Asterisk Tom from Jake's work, 8:02 a.m. That psycho has been collecting information on all of us. I'm calling a lawyer, asterisk. But the message that made my hands shake was from Jake's boss, David Chen, who, in a cosmic joke, shared my last name despite being no relation. Asterisk David Chen, 6:45 a.m. Sarah, I received your email. Can you come to the hotel at 3 p.m. today? We need to discuss this before tonight's event. Jake doesn't know I'm contacting you, asterisk. 3 p.m. 4 hours before the party was supposed to start. I was still scrolling through messages when Emma burst into her guest room with coffee and a look of barely contained excitement. Sarah, you need to see the news, she said, thrusting her phone at me. The headline made my heart stop, Bay Area tech worker arrested for identity theft and harassment. The article was brief but devastating. Apparently, Jake's ex-girlfriend from Stanford, a woman named Rebecca Kim, had seen my email blast and immediately contacted the FBI. She'd been trying to build a case against Jake for months after discovering he'd done similar things to her, but hadn't had enough evidence until now. Rebecca called me an hour ago, Emma said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Jake apparently destroyed her credit, accessed her medical records, and created fake social media profiles to harass her family after they broke up. She's been working with federal investigators since March. My phone rang. Unknown number. Sarah? This is Rebecca Kim. I got your number from your sister. We need to talk immediately. Rebecca's voice was steady, professional, but I could hear an undercurrent of barely contained rage that I recognized intimately. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Soma at 1 p.m., 2 hours before my meeting with Jake's boss. I spent the morning forwarding evidence to Rebecca's FBI contact, a woman named Agent Martinez who apparently specialized in tech-enabled domestic abuse cases. By noon, I had a case number and a federal investigation that had been upgraded from preliminary inquiry to active case. Jake still hadn't responded to any of the evidence. No calls, no texts, nothing. According to Emma's friends who lived in our building, he'd left the apartment around 10 p.m. Friday night and hadn't come back. Rebecca was waiting for me at Ritual Coffee when I arrived, and I recognized her immediately even though we'd never met. She had the same shell-shocked look I'd been carrying for months, the expression of someone who'd been systematically torn down and was still rebuilding herself. He did the exact same things to you, she said without preamble, sliding a thick folder across the table. Phone security protocols, fake concerned friends, even the sister manipulation. He had my brother convinced I was having a nervous breakdown. I opened her folder and felt like I was looking at my own life through a funhouse mirror. Screenshots of Jake's identical manipulation techniques, used on a different woman 2 years ago. The same brothers who code group chat, with messages about Rebecca instead of me. Even photos from the same Marriott hotel where he'd apparently been taking women for years. Rebecca, why didn't you go to the police sooner? I tried. Her laugh was bitter. Jake's smart, Sarah. He made sure I looked unstable before he discarded me. By the time I realized what he'd done, I had a reputation as his crazy ex-girlfriend and no one would listen. She leaned forward. But your evidence changes everything. You documented it in real time, and you caught him actively manipulating multiple people simultaneously. Agent Martinez says it's the strongest case of systematic psychological abuse she's seen. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, Sarah, this is Jake's mom Patricia. I'm at the hotel and David Chin showed me your evidence. Can we please talk before you destroy my son's life completely? I showed Rebecca the message. She shook her head. That's not his mom, she said. Patricia Hoffman died when Jake was 12. He uses fake family members as manipulation tactics. The realization hit me like ice water. I'd been dating Jake for 2 years, and I'd never met his family because they didn't exist the way he described them. Every story about his therapist mother and engineer father had been fabricated. I texted back, who is this really? The response came immediately, it's Jake. We need to talk. I can explain everything, Even now, even caught with overwhelming evidence, he was still trying to manipulate me with fake identities and manipulation. I stood up from the coffee shop table, Rebecca's folder in my hands and 2 years of lies crystallizing into perfect, furious clarity. Rebecca, want to come to a company party tonight? I think it's time Jake met his consequences in person. At 3 p.m. sharp, I walked into the Marriott Grand Hotel lobby with Rebecca beside me and a USB drive containing enough evidence to end Jake's freedom, not just his relationship. Agent Martinez had insisted on copying everything before we came, and knowing the FBI now had an active case file made each step feel like justice instead of revenge. David Chen was waiting in the hotel bar, a compact man in his 50s who radiated the kind of calm authority that came from running a successful tech company. He stood when he saw us approaching, and I noticed his eyes immediately go to Rebecca. Ms. Kim, I presume? Agent Martinez told me you'd be joining us. Rebecca nodded. Mr. Chen, thank you for taking this seriously. A lot of people didn't. We settled into a corner booth, away from the early arrivals already checking in for tonight's party. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the San Francisco Bay stretching out like a promise of freedom I was finally ready to claim. Sarah, David began, pulling out his tablet, I've spent the last 8 hours reviewing everything you sent. I need you to know that Jake Hoffman hasn't been employed by our company since 9 a.m. this morning. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. You fired him? We terminated his employment the moment our legal team confirmed the authenticity of his manipulation documentation. But there's something else. David's expression darkened. Jake has been using company resources to conduct his surveillance operations. Our IT department discovered he'd been accessing our background check services to investigate not just you and your family, but several employees' personal information. Rebecca leaned forward. That's exactly what he did at his last job. I tried to warn them, but he'd already painted you as unstable, David finished. Yes, Agent Martinez filled me in. Sarah, we owe you an enormous debt. Jake's been systematically violating privacy laws using our corporate accounts for over 18 months. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number, Sarah, I'm outside the hotel. We can fix this. Don't ruin everything over a misunderstanding, I showed the message to David and Rebecca. David immediately called hotel security. Jake's been contacting employees all day, he explained. Alternately threatening and pleading with them to discredit your evidence. He doesn't seem to understand that his own digital footprints are what condemned him. Through the bar's windows, I spotted a familiar figure pacing near the hotel's valet stand. Jake, wearing his best charcoal suit, the one he'd bought specifically for tonight's party where he'd planned to network his way to a promotion. Instead, he was stalking around the entrance like a predator who'd lost his prey. He looks different, I murmured, watching him gesture frantically into his phone. Rebecca followed my gaze. That's what happens when they lose control of the narrative. Jake's entire identity is built on being the smartest person in the room. When that gets stripped away. She shrugged. They fall apart fast. The party guests are arriving soon, David said, checking his watch. Sarah, I want you to know that you're welcome to attend tonight if you want to face this head-on. But you absolutely don't have to. Security will handle Jake if he tries to enter. I watched Jake through the window, saw him pull out what looked like a different phone, probably a burner, since his main device was likely being monitored by the FBI now. Even in complete disgrace, he was still scheming, still trying to find an angle to regain control. Oh, I'm definitely staying, I said, finishing my coffee. Jake spent 2 years making me feel powerless. Tonight, I want him to know exactly how that feels. Rebecca smiled grimly. Then let's go get ready. Time to debug Jake Hoffman permanently. The ballroom was already half full by 6:30 p.m., and I watched from the hotel bar as Jake's colleagues filtered in, their conversations noticeably subdued. Word had clearly spread beyond my email blast. There's nothing tech workers love more than dissecting a spectacular system failure, and Jake had just provided them with the crash of the century. Rebecca squeezed my arm. You ready for this? I smoothed down my black dress, the one Jake had always said made me look too serious, and nodded. Let's go. We'd barely stepped into the ballroom when Jennifer from HR rushed over, her face flushed with what looked like a combination of embarrassment and anger. Sarah, I need you to know I had no idea, she said, her voice low and urgent. He showed me screenshots of texts where you were supposedly okay with him seeing other people. He said you had an arrangement but got jealous sometimes. Another manipulation. Even his affairs had been orchestrated with surgical precision. How many others? I asked. Jennifer glanced around nervously. From your email, it looks like 12 women total. But Sarah. She leaned closer. 3 of them are here tonight. Jake invited them as his plus ones to different parts of the company. They don't know about each other. The audacity was breathtaking, but also perfectly on brand. Jake had planned to juggle multiple women at his own company party, probably timing his conversations so they'd never cross paths. Where are they now? Amanda from marketing is by the appetizer table. Sophia, she's external, works at Google, is near the bar. And Jennifer looked uncomfortable. Rachel is David Chen's new executive assistant. She's been seeing Jake for 3 months. Rachel, David's assistant. Jake had been sleeping with his boss's right hand while systematically stealing company resources for his manipulation campaigns. Jennifer, I need you to do something for me, I said, pulling out my phone. Can you get them all together in the next 10 minutes? Tell them there's something they need to see. While Jennifer went to collect Jake's unwitting harem, Rebecca and I positioned ourselves near the ballroom's main entrance. According to hotel security, Jake was still outside, apparently trying to convince someone on the phone to vouch for his character. The mental image of him desperately calling his manipulation victims for character references would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Sarah. Amanda from marketing appeared at my elbow, followed by 2 women I didn't recognize. Jennifer said you wanted to talk to us about Jake? This was it. The moment where Jake's careful compartmentalization would collapse in real time. Yes, but first, Sophia and Rachel, right? I need you both to answer a question honestly. When did Jake tell you he and I broke up? Sophia, a tall brunette with kind eyes, looked confused. He said you split up in July. That you'd been having mental health issues and he couldn't handle the drama anymore. August for me, Rachel added quietly. He said you'd been stalking him and he had to move out for his own safety. I pulled up the photos from Jake's cloud storage, the ones timestamped from last week showing our apartment, our bed, our life together that had never actually ended. Amanda's face went white. Oh my god. These are from 5 days ago. He's been living with me the entire time, I said gently. All of us thought we were the only one. The silence stretched for about 3 seconds before Sophia started laughing, not amused laughter, but the slightly manic sound of someone whose reality had just imploded. That manipulative piece of shit, she breathed. He borrowed money from me last month to help with moving expenses after his crazy ex destroyed his credit. He used my Google employee discount to buy electronics, Rachel added, her voice getting louder. Said his vindictive ex-girlfriend had frozen his accounts. I was his crazy ex-girlfriend in every story, even while I was still making his coffee every morning. There's more, I said, and began showing them the screenshots. The rating system Jake had created for his various women. The group chat where he'd shared intimate details about all of us. The backup plan he'd documented for discarding each relationship when it became too complicated. By the time I finished, all 3 women were crying, but it was angry crying, the kind that meant Jake's victims were transforming into his prosecutors. He's here, Rebecca said suddenly, pointing toward the entrance. Jake had finally made it past security. Jake entered the ballroom like he owned it, shoulders back and that familiar confident smile plastered across his face. For a split second, seeing him in his element, I almost doubted myself. This was the Jake who'd charmed me at a coffee shop 2 years ago, who'd convinced me I was lucky to be with someone so brilliant and put together. Then I noticed the details. His tie was crooked, Jake never had crooked ties. There was a coffee stain on his shirt cuff that he tried to scrub out. Most telling of all, his hands were shaking as he adjusted his jacket. Jesus Christ, Amanda whispered beside me. He's actually going to try to play this off. Jake's eyes swept the room, clearly looking for allies, people who hadn't received my email or might still believe his version of events. His gaze landed on our group, me, Rebecca, and his 3 other girlfriends, and I watched his practiced mask slip for just a moment. But then he was walking toward us, arms spread in that disarming gesture he'd perfected. Sarah, baby, thank God you're here, he said, loud enough for nearby conversations to pause. I've been trying to reach you all day. My phone got hacked, someone's been sending out fake messages pretending to be me. The audacity left me speechless, but Rebecca stepped forward. Hello, Jake, she said quietly. Remember me? Jake's face went through a fascinating series of micro-expressions, recognition, panic, calculation, then back to fake concern in under 2 seconds. Rebecca, wow, what are you doing here? Sarah, did you know Rebecca has been stalking me since college? She's been creating fake evidence and... Cut the shit, Jake, Sophia interrupted, her voice carrying across half the ballroom. We've all seen the screenshots. From your own accounts. With timestamps. A wider circle of people had stopped pretending not to listen. I recognized faces from Jake's development team, David Chen's executive staff, even some of the investors who'd been invited tonight. Jake's professional network was getting a real-time demonstration of his character. Ladies, I think there's been a misunderstanding, Jake said, switching to his reasonable voice, the one he'd used to convince me I was imagining things for months. Sarah's been struggling with some mental health issues, and I think she's convinced you all to. Jake. David Chen's voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. He was walking toward us with 2 men I didn't recognize, both wearing suits that screamed law enforcement. I think it's time you left. David, hey, perfect timing, Jake said, pivoting smoothly toward his now former boss. I've been trying to explain to everyone that my accounts were compromised. Someone's been impersonating me online, probably corporate espionage from. These gentlemen are Agent Martinez and Agent Rodriguez from the FBI, David said calmly. They have some questions about your use of company resources for personal surveillance activities. The blood drained from Jake's face so quickly I thought he might faint. The FBI agent stepped forward, and suddenly Jake's whole confident facade cracked wide open. This is insane, he said, his voice rising to a pitch I'd never heard before. Sarah's obviously having another paranoid episode. She's been making up stories about me for months, everyone knows she's... Mr. Hoffman, Agent Martinez interrupted, pulling out her badge. We'd like you to come with us voluntarily for questioning. Otherwise, we can discuss your federal crimes right here in front of your colleagues. The ballroom had gone completely silent. 80 people watching Jake Hoffman's public execution, broadcast live at his own company party. Federal crimes? Jake's laugh sounded manic. What federal crimes? I haven't done anything wrong. This is all. Identity theft, computer fraud, interstate harassment, and illegal surveillance, Agent Rodriguez recited. Should I continue? Jake's eyes darted frantically around the room, looking for anyone who might still believe him, still help him, still buy whatever lie he was preparing to tell. Instead, he found 80 faces staring back at him with disgust, fascination, and the particular satisfaction that comes from watching a predator finally get caught. Sarah, he said desperately, turning back to me one last time. You know me. You know I'd never. I know exactly who you are, I said, my voice steady and clear. Finally. The FBI agents escorted Jake out through a side exit, but not before he managed one final performance that somehow made everything worse. Sarah, please, he called out as Agent Martinez guided him toward the door, his voice cracking with what almost sounded like genuine desperation. I love you. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Don't let them destroy us over some misunderstanding. The word misunderstanding echoed through the silent ballroom like a slap. 2 years of systematic psychological torture, reduced to a misunderstanding. Jesus, someone whispered behind me. He really thinks he's the victim here. But it was what happened after the agents left that truly revealed the scope of Jake's destruction. Within minutes, people were approaching me with stories I'd never heard. Tom from the development team showed me emails Jake had sent to their mutual friends, claiming I was financially unstable and might try to borrow money from them. Lisa from accounting had screenshots of Jake warning her that I'd been spreading rumors about her work performance, rumors I'd never made because I barely knew Lisa existed. He told me you were jealous of successful women, Lisa said, her voice tight with anger. Said you'd probably try to sabotage my promotion prospects because you felt threatened by me. Jake had been poisoning my reputation for months, inoculating our entire social circle against me before I even knew there was a war happening. But the revelation that made my hands shake came from Marcus, Jake's supposed best friend from the Brothers Who Code group chat. Sarah, I need to tell you something, Marcus said, pulling me aside near the hotel bar. His face was pale, and he kept running his hands through his hair nervously. The group chat thing, it's not what you think. What do you mean? Rebecca asked, joining us. Jake created fake accounts for me and Devin. We never sent those messages. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing me his real chat history with Jake. Look at the timestamps. Jake was having conversations with himself, pretending to be us, then screenshotting them like we were all conspirators. I stared at the evidence, feeling reality shift again. The Brothers Who Code conspiracy that had made me feel so betrayed and alone, it was just Jake, talking to himself, creating the illusion of a support network for his manipulation techniques. Marcus, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I didn't know. Jake showed me some of your texts months ago, said you were getting paranoid about his female friends. Asked me to keep an eye on the situation. Marcus's voice was getting agitated. He made it sound like you were having some kind of breakdown and he needed backup to help you through it. Even his best friend had been manipulated into participating without realizing it. There's something else, Marcus continued. Jake's been crashing at my place since Thursday night. He told me you'd kicked him out during a psychotic episode and he was afraid to go home. But Sarah, the things he was saying about you. What things? Marcus looked uncomfortable. He was talking about having you committed. Said he'd been documenting your deteriorating mental state in case he needed to get you involuntarily hospitalized for your own safety. The room started spinning. Jake hadn't just been collecting evidence to discredit me, he'd been building a case to have me institutionalized. He showed me legal documents, Marcus whispered. Forms for emergency psychiatric holds. He said if you got too dangerous, he might have to take drastic action to protect himself. Rebecca grabbed my arm to steady me. Sarah, breathe. He can't do that now. The FBI has everything. But the implications were staggering. If I hadn't found his phone's security protocol when I did, if I hadn't discovered his manipulation network in time, Jake might have successfully convinced everyone that I was mentally unstable while he played the concerned boyfriend trying to get me help. How long? I managed to ask Marcus. How long has he been planning this? Marcus checked his phone, scrolling through old messages. The first time he mentioned your episodes was 8 months ago. Right after you guys moved in together. 8 months. Jake had been laying the groundwork to destroy my sanity since practically the day we'd started sharing a lease. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this isn't over, Sarah. You have no idea what you've started, asterisk. I showed the message to Rebecca, who immediately forwarded it to Agent Martinez. He's not done, Rebecca said grimly. Jake doesn't accept defeat. Ever. Looking around the ballroom at the faces of people who now knew the truth, I realized she was right. Tonight felt like a victory, but Jake Hoffman was still out there, and cornered predators were the most dangerous kind. The text from Jake kept coming every few minutes, each one more unhinged than the last. Asterisk 11:47 p.m. You think the FBI will protect you? I have backups of everything, asterisk. Asterisk 12:03 a.m. Rebecca's feeding you lies. Check her criminal record, asterisk. Asterisk 12:15 a.m. Your parents' mortgage payment is due Thursday. Would hate for them to miss it, asterisk. I was back at Emma's apartment, sitting on her couch with Rebecca and Agent Martinez, who'd arrived an hour ago with a laptop and a very serious expression. The party had ended with Jake's colleagues treating me like some kind of hero, but the victory felt hollow now that he was escalating. He's not just making empty threats, Agent Martinez said, reviewing the messages. We found evidence that Jake's been monitoring your parents' financial accounts for months. He has access to their bank routing numbers, credit card statements, even your father's business PayPal. My stomach dropped. Can he actually do anything with that information? Unfortunately, yes. Identity theft, fraudulent charges, even messing with automatic bill payments. She looked up from her laptop. Has your family noticed any unusual financial activity lately? I thought about my dad's casual mention last week that their credit card had been declined at dinner, something about the bank's overzealous fraud detection. At the time, Jake had been so sympathetic, suggesting they call the bank immediately to fix the glitch. Oh God, I whispered. He's already started. Rebecca moved closer on the couch. Sarah, this is exactly what he did to me. First the public humiliation, then the financial sabotage. He drained my savings account 3 weeks after I tried to expose him at Stanford. Agent Martinez was typing rapidly. We're putting emergency fraud alerts on all your family's accounts tonight. But Sarah, I need you to understand, Jake's escalation pattern suggests he's not planning to just disappear quietly. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo message that made my blood run cold. A screenshot of my work computer desktop, taken from inside my office at Morrison Marketing. The timestamp showed 11:23 p.m. tonight, 3 hours after Jake had been escorted out of his company party by federal agents. How is he in my office? I breathed, showing the image to Agent Martinez. She cursed under her breath. Jake still has your building access codes. He's been documenting your work schedule for months, remember? He knows exactly when the building is empty. The next message was a video. 23 seconds of Jake walking through my office, opening my desk drawers, holding up client files that contained confidential marketing strategies for Morrison's biggest accounts. He's stealing proprietary information from your company, Agent Martinez said grimly. Federal crime number 4. But Jake wasn't done. The final message was a document I recognized immediately, my resignation letter, typed on my work computer using my login credentials, already sitting in my boss's email drafts folder with a timestamp scheduled for 8 a.m. Monday morning. Asterisk Jake, 12:34 a.m., thought you might want to review your resignation before I send it. Amazing what you wrote about your colleagues. Very unprofessional asterisk. He's framing me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He's going to send that Monday morning and make it look like I'm having a breakdown, insulting everyone at work. Emma grabbed my phone to read the fake resignation letter. Jesus Christ, Sarah. He's got you calling your boss an incompetent micromanager and saying the whole marketing department is creatively bankrupt. This would destroy your professional reputation. Agent Martinez was already on her phone with someone, speaking in rapid law enforcement shorthand about active cybercrime and emergency warrants. But I could see the concern in her expression. Jake was moving faster than the legal system could catch him. Rebecca, I said suddenly, when Jake escalated with you, how long did it take? 72 hours, she replied immediately. 3 days from exposure to complete financial ruin. He's systematic about it, Sarah. He'll hit your career, your family's finances, and your personal relationships simultaneously. My phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Agent Martinez warned, but I was already swiping to accept. Jake's voice was eerily calm, almost cheerful. Hi, Sarah. Enjoying your victory party? This call is being recorded, Jake, Agent Martinez said loudly. Oh good, Jake replied. Then you'll have documentation of Sarah's final chance to fix this mess before it gets really ugly. Here's what's going to happen, Jake continued, his voice taking on that clinical tone I'd heard him use when debugging particularly stubborn code. Sarah, you're going to call Agent Martinez off, withdraw your statements, and admit you fabricated everything out of jealousy. In return, I'll delete the resignation letter and forget about your parents' mortgage situation. Agent Martinez was frantically typing on her laptop while gesturing for me to keep him talking. Rebecca had moved to the window, phone pressed to her ear, speaking quietly to someone I couldn't identify. Jake, you were just arrested by federal agents, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. What makes you think you're in a position to negotiate anything? Because I'm not the one whose family is about to lose their house, he replied pleasantly. Did you know your dad missed a payment last month? Amazing how that happens when someone accidentally changes the autopay routing number by 1 digit. My chest tightened. Dad had mentioned something about the bank calling about a processing error with their mortgage payment. Jake had been sitting right there at Sunday dinner, expressing concern about identity theft targeting older adults. That was you, I whispered. That was me fixing a glitch in their payment system, Jake corrected. Very easy to create more glitches if needed. Your parents have been so responsible with their credit for 32 years. Shame to see that perfect record disappear overnight. Agent Martinez held up her laptop screen. She typed, asterisk keep him talking. We're tracing the call location, asterisk. What about your own situation, Jake? I asked. Pretty sure federal prison doesn't have great coding opportunities. His laugh was genuinely amused. Sarah, you still don't understand how this works. Everything you think you found? I let you find it. Every screenshot, every document, every piece of evidence, it's all been modified, timestamped, and prepared for exactly this scenario. The room went cold. Rebecca stopped her phone conversation and stared at me. You're lying, I said, but something in his tone made me doubt everything again. Am I? Check the metadata on those photos from my cloud storage. Look at the actual creation dates, not the fake timestamps I embedded in the file names. Jake's voice was getting more confident. Agent Martinez, you might want to run a deeper forensic analysis before you embarrass yourself in federal court. Agent Martinez's expression had shifted from determination to concern. She was rapidly clicking through files on her laptop, and I could see her frowning at whatever she was finding. Even if that's true, I said desperately, Rebecca has corroborating evidence from your previous relationship. Rebecca, Jake said warmly, how's your parole officer doing these days? Agent Martinez, did Rebecca mention she served 18 months for computer fraud before we met at Stanford? The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Rebecca, who had gone completely pale. That's not, Rebecca started. Identity theft, credit card fraud, and fabricating evidence in a harassment case against her college roommate, Jake continued cheerfully. Really, Sarah, you couldn't have picked a better partner for your little revenge fantasy. 2 unstable women with criminal backgrounds, working together to frame an innocent man? This practically writes itself. Agent Martinez was staring at her laptop screen with an expression I couldn't read. Rebecca had stopped talking entirely, her phone forgotten in her hand. Jake, where are you right now? I asked, trying to regain control of the conversation. Somewhere with very good Wi-Fi, he replied. Sarah, you have until Monday morning at 8 a.m. to fix this. Call Agent Martinez off, admit you lied, and publicly apologize for the misunderstanding. Otherwise, your parents lose their house, your career gets destroyed, and Rebecca goes back to prison for violating her parole with fraudulent evidence. The line went dead. Agent Martinez closed her laptop with a sharp snap. We need to talk. The silence in Emma's living room stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. Agent Martinez, I said carefully, what did you find? She rubbed her temples like she was fighting a headache. Some of the metadata is inconsistent. Jake's right that several files show creation dates that don't match their apparent timestamps. My heart started pounding. What does that mean? It could mean he prepared some of this evidence in advance, anticipating exposure. Or. She paused. It could mean he's been planning this specific scenario for months. Rebecca finally spoke, her voice barely audible. Sarah, I need to tell you something about my record. Please tell me Jake was lying about the parole thing. He wasn't. Rebecca sank into Emma's armchair like her legs wouldn't support her anymore. But it's not what he made it sound like. I was 19, and my college roommate was stealing my identity to open credit cards. When I tried to prove it, I accessed her accounts without permission. Technically computer fraud, even though I was the victim. Agent Martinez was watching Rebecca with professional interest. Ms. Kim, did you disclose your criminal history when you first contacted the Bureau? No. I was afraid you wouldn't take the case seriously. The federal agent's expression hardened. That's a problem. Defense attorneys will use that omission to discredit everything you provided. My phone buzzed. Another message from Jake, Sarah, ask Agent Martinez about the search warrant for my apartment. Oh wait, they don't have one yet, do they? Amazing what gets thrown out of court when evidence is collected illegally, I showed the message to Agent Martinez, whose face went ashen. He's right, she admitted. We've been operating under exigent circumstances, but if Jake's lawyer challenges the initial evidence collection. What does that mean in English? Emma asked from the kitchen doorway. It means everything I found in his cloud storage might be inadmissible in court, I whispered. Another text, Sarah, check your work email. Looks like your boss sent you something urgent, With trembling hands, I logged into my Morrison marketing account on Emma's laptop. There it was, an email from my boss Catherine Morrison, sent 15 minutes ago at 12:43 a.m. Subject, emergency, confidential information breach. Sarah, our security system flagged unusual access to client files from your workstation tonight at 11:23 p.m. Please call me immediately. We may have a serious breach of confidentiality that requires immediate legal action, Catherine. He's not just framing me for the resignation letter, I said, my voice hollow. He's making it look like I was stealing client information after hours. Agent Martinez leaned over to read the email. Sarah, were you anywhere near your office tonight? I was at the hotel party until 10 p.m., then came straight here. Can you prove that? Security cameras, witnesses, credit card transactions? I thought frantically. The hotel has cameras. Emma was with me. Rebecca too. That might not be enough if Jake's created digital evidence showing your access credentials were used, Agent Martinez said grimly. And if Rebecca's credibility is compromised. My phone rang again. Catherine Morrison's name on the screen at 12:58 a.m. Sarah? Catherine's voice was tight with stress. I just got a call from Pinnacle Industries. They're threatening to terminate our contract. Someone sent them an email from your account tonight containing proprietary information about their competitors. The room started spinning. Pinnacle Industries was Morrison Marketing's biggest client, a $2.3 million annual contract that kept our agency afloat. Catherine, I didn't send any emails tonight. Someone's accessed my accounts. Sarah, I need you to come in first thing Monday morning. This could destroy the company. After she hung up, I stared at Emma's coffee table, calculating the scope of Jake's destruction. My career, my family's finances, Rebecca's freedom, and now my entire company's survival all being systematically demolished while federal agents sat in my sister's living room, hamstrung by legal technicalities. He's winning, I whispered. Rebecca looked up from her phone. Sarah, there's something else. I just got a call from my parole officer. Someone filed a report claiming I'd violated the terms of my release by engaging in identity theft and evidence fabrication. Agent Martinez closed her eyes. Jake's not just discrediting the evidence. He's eliminating the witnesses. My phone buzzed one final time, 7 hours and 52 minutes until your deadline, Sarah. Hope you're ready to make the right choice, At 7:47 a.m. Monday morning, I walked into Morrison Marketing's conference room with Agent Martinez, Rebecca, and a briefcase full of evidence that Jake didn't know existed. Catherine Morrison was already there with our corporate lawyer, both looking like they'd aged 5 years since Friday. The Pinnacle Industries executives had flown in overnight, 3 men in expensive suits who controlled the contract that could save or destroy my company. Sarah, Catherine began carefully, before we start, I need to know. I didn't send those emails, I interrupted. But I can prove who did. Agent Martinez opened her briefcase and pulled out Jake's real computer, the one the FBI had seized from Marcus's apartment at 3:47 a.m. with a properly executed search warrant. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, meet Jake Hoffman's actual manipulation headquarters. The laptop contained everything Jake thought he'd hidden. Not the sanitized cloud storage he'd let me find, but his real files, including a folder labeled Scorched Earth Protocol with detailed plans for destroying me, Rebecca, and anyone else who threatened to expose him. This document is from March 15th, Agent Martinez said, pulling up a file called Sarah_Endgame.docs. 7 months before Ms. Chen discovered his phone security protocol. It outlines exactly what we've witnessed this weekend, the fake resignation letter, the client information theft, even the mortgage payment sabotage. Catherine leaned forward to read Jake's clinical documentation of my planned destruction. He's been planning this for months? Longer, Rebecca said, pulling out her own evidence. Agent Martinez, show them the pattern analysis. What Jake hadn't counted on was Rebecca's obsessive documentation of their relationship 2 years ago. She kept everything, not for revenge, but for her own sanity, the same way I'd started keeping notes about feeling paranoid. Together, our evidence created a timeline showing Jake's identical manipulation techniques across multiple victims over 4 years. Mr. Brennan, Agent Martinez addressed Pinnacle's lead executive. The email sent from Ms. Chen's account originated from this computer, using credentials Jake harvested through keylogger software he'd installed on her work machine 6 months ago. She pulled up Jake's actual sent folder, dozens of emails to clients, competitors, and vendors, all from hijacked accounts belonging to his various targets over the years. We've identified at least 47 separate instances of corporate espionage across 12 companies, Agent Martinez continued. Jake Hoffman has been systematically stealing proprietary information and using it for insider trading through shell accounts. The room went silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just about psychological manipulation anymore. Jake had been running a multi-million-dollar corporate espionage operation using his victims' access credentials as cover. My phone buzzed at 7:59 a.m. Jake's final message, asterisk time's up, Sarah. Hope you made the right choice, asterisk. I held up my phone so everyone could see, then responded with a single photo, Jake in handcuffs being led out of Marcus's apartment by federal agents at 4:15 a.m. Asterisk my reply, I did make the right choice, Jake. I chose to trust myself, asterisk. Agent Martinez smiled grimly. Jake Hoffman was arrested this morning on federal charges of wire fraud, identity theft, computer crimes, and securities fraud. The evidence from his actual computer shows systematic financial crimes totaling over $3.2 million. What about Sarah's situation? Catherine asked. All charges will be dropped. We have digital forensics proving Ms. Chen was in no way involved in the data breaches. In fact, her documentation of Jake's behavior helped us uncover the largest corporate espionage case our department has seen. 6 months later, Jake was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Rebecca got her record expunged and started a nonprofit helping other manipulation survivors. Morrison Marketing landed 3 new major clients after the FBI's investigation revealed our competitor had been using Jake's stolen information against us for years. And me? I kept the apartment, changed all the locks, and finally learned to trust my instincts completely. Sometimes the best debugging requires burning the whole system down and rebuilding from scratch.